He freezes for a second as the window remains open. Everyone wonders why the saint is talking to him, saying he looks like a normal guy. She then takes his hands, asking what his name is. He says his name is Warrior Kim and comments that the only reason a priest would ask someone's name in Arcane Seoul is. Before he finishes his thought, he's interrupted as she declares that she represents the Old Father's order and baptizes him. Since the Old Father always desires powers like his, she tells him that he must submit and find peace in this hellish world, as the enchantment table begins moving across his arm. Everyone around him envies the fact that he's being baptized, especially because she is the Old Father's first daughter. Joonsoo, however, has a different perspective. He's extremely nervous, thinking that if he's baptized and gains the baptism trait, he will have no choice but to become a paladin of the order. However, the Old Father's order loses to major figures in Arcane Seoul during the war with South Korea, and this figure is none other than the celestial demon. As she continues with the baptism, he rips her hand off of him, saying it feels like being forced to invest in a stock that's about to crash. He kneels, refusing the baptism. We see her eyes turn completely psychopathic as she says that he must not have heard her correctly. He responds, saying he's very serious despite being a little exhausted. She starts to control her anger, saying that it's anyone's right to serve or refuse. However, the Old Father has already set his eyes on him. She places her hand on his shoulder, warning him not to forget that a powerful divine energy is already rooted inside him, and that if he can't overcome such a small power, his fragile free will won't mean anything in the end. Then he begins to be enveloped by a yellow flame as he starts screaming in front of everyone. They question how someone like him can refuse the baptism, asking if he isn't religious or something. We see that he's being affected by divine fever, and that he will suffer a burning, endless pain as punishment for refusing the baptism. He was prepared for this, but it still hurts like hell, his whole body burning. This is one of the strongest debuffs in the entire game. The effect causes continuous, searing pain, preventing the person from continuing their normal life. The only way to get rid of it is to go to a temple and be baptized. He refused the baptism thinking about the future, but it seems he might die right here as we see his eyes rolling back. He loses consciousness until someone splashes water on his face, waking him up again. He wonders who it is, only to see the woman from before asking if he's okay. She seems genuinely concerned. He says that no one helps someone affected by divine fever because they fear the negativity will spread to them, and he's grateful that she took the risk to help him. He sits up again, saying that he'll endure a little longer. As he enters a lotus position, he gains a trait called Divine Resistance. We see that he's starting to build a resistance to the flames. He says he didn't refuse the baptism recklessly either, and that the debuff gets stronger depending on the total mana of the target. Since he's still level 1, the debuff is weaker in comparison, so there are some solutions. The first is to acquire the trait, which he just did, and now he'll focus more mana within himself. It's unclear whether he unlocked his traits or activated mana absorption. Still, he starts screaming in pain, while the woman continues to pour bottles of water over him, telling him that he'll make it. This immediately cools his body, and he says it feels like life-giving water. He needs to focus on this contrasting sensation between the fire and the water. As he begins to balance them inside him, it feels as though time stops. The burning pain and the sensation of cold begin to merge into one, while he uses the mana within him to extinguish the fire. When he opens his eyes, a powerful blue light starts emanating from him. It even blinds the poor girl. We then see that he has gained another trait called Mana Barrier, as the flames can no longer harm him. He smiles, saying that this is the common level 1 skill that a defender warrior should acquire. The woman asks if he's okay, and he replies that he's fine now, thanks to her. But everyone is in disbelief that he managed to overcome the divine fever, asking if that's really possible. Of course, he hasn't fully overcome it, and this is just a temporary measure against the fever, using the barrier. But at least he's free from the burning pain, and the black flame even makes him look cool. Now it's his turn to measure his mana as he steps onto the magical device. He begins to charge up, rising higher and higher. He smiles, awaiting the measurement, and we see that the device reports he is level 1 but has a 6-layer circuit. They can't believe he has 6 traits, saying this is the birth of a super newbie. It must be why the holy figure had her eyes on him. Joonsoo says that he has attracted a lot of attention, and that his goal is to be the overpowered protagonist, but hidden in the shadows. The woman then congratulates him, saying she's never seen anyone start with a 6-layer circuit and that they can now issue his license. They move to another part of the tower, where she places it on the table, congratulating him for being officially certified as a superhuman. He starts crying tears of joy, saying that he worked so hard to achieve this, and she says she'll explain all the privileges. He replies that he doesn't need an explanation as he already knows everything. He begins to list the privileges and she's surprised at how well he knows them. He says that he's addicted to games, or rather, a doctor in superhumanology. He then warns her that he doesn't like to waste time. While we see a crowd watching them, he asks if there's a way to leave discreetly. She laughs, saying of course she's already prepared a way. We see him blush as she stands up, asking him to follow her, smiling. They both appear cloaked and he thanks her for taking such good care of him. She even provided him with a secret passage, along with a cloak, saying that it was nothing as everyone should help each other in the end. Just by wearing the cloak he acquires the stealth trait. The guy is broken. The woman then points to the exit, saying that he just needs to walk there as she can only guide him to that point due to the rules. He bows, saying that this is more than enough and thanks her for everything she did. She wishes him a good journey back. As he watches her walk away, he says he didn't know such a kind person existed in Arcane Seoul. She's also beautiful, and once he becomes stronger, he'll have to repay the favor. Then he wonders what her name is. When he looks at the business card, he's completely incredulous. We see that her name is Baek Soren. He says this is the name of one of the 3 strongest warriors in the SSR class in the game. She's a berserker and has always had a rather intimidating appearance. He finds it strange that her face looks familiar and never would have imagined she once had such a calm demeanor. He wonders what happened to her between then and now. The scene shifts to him working as he cuts a slime in half. He says that he takes back everything he said about being cool as a superhuman, mentioning that he's been cleaning these monsters for a whole week and is about to die from exhaustion. Me too, man, me too. He then sits down, sighing, saying he's only finished 1 cave, but he's so tired that he can't go on. His efficiency is terrible. All of this happened because he focused his traits on maintaining the mana barrier. If he could customize them to specialize more in monster cleaning, he'd have been done hours ago, but now he can't do any other work because of that damn debuff. He needs a rare potion called Nectar to get rid of the divine fever, but it's so expensive that this monster cleaning job isn't worth it, and he starts feeling incredibly depressed. His phone starts ringing and we see it's none other than Seonsu. He wonders how many times this guy is going to call him, saying that Seonsu is persistent. Before he can reject the call, thinking he's tired of this guy, an idea pops into his head, and he starts grinning wickedly. At Seonsu's agency, he's thrilled to see him and says he can't believe he managed to overcome the divine fever without being baptized, starting to turn into a big brown noser. Joonsoo says that things have ended like this and asks if Seonsu has found the job he requested. Seonsu tells him not to even mention it, saying it was so difficult because nectar is a medicine that can only be obtained through level 5 or higher requests. Joonsoo says that if he hasn't gotten the nectar, he'll leave, but Seonsu tells him to wait, explaining that it involves their exclusive contract, and he needs to secure it at all costs. And of course he did. Joonsoo starts smiling, saying that since Seonsu is so desperate for a superhuman contract, he knew he would do anything to ensure the request was fulfilled. He then sits back asking what the content of the request is. As Seonsu hands him the paper, he asks if Joonsoo has heard of Security Number 1. Joonsoo says this is the first time he's hearing about it, wondering if it's a security company. Seonsu explains that it's a private military company, one of the top 10 in the sector. The CEO and the vice CEO are a married couple, both come from traditional martial arts families, which makes their foundation very solid. Joonsoo asks what they might be lacking that would require them to make such a request. Seonsu replies that the issue is their son. He's already over 20, but still hasn't awakened as a superhuman. Joonsoo finds this surprising, given that both parents come from martial arts families. Seonsu says the rumor is that he's already accumulated level 8 mana, but simply can't awaken, which is a mystery. Their condition was for a warrior-type superhuman, level 1 or higher. So, it seems to fit perfectly. Joonsoo then starts smiling, saying that he'll go see them right away. As he heads to their property, we see Seonsu's legs shaking uncontrollably. He says that they're quite busy as they aren't the type to be late. Joonsoo just looks around the house, commenting that it's very expensive. We hear a woman apologizing, saying she's very sorry for making them wait so long. The guy's about to have a heart attack. Finally, we are introduced to them. She says they are the clients. The husband's name is Seo Youngju, and the wife's name is Lee Miria. Seonsu bows, saying it's nothing, thanking them for the time they've spent with them. Joonsoo does the same, saying they must be superhumans of at least level 6, as both have a considerable amount of aura. Youngju sighs and says he can tell this one is weak just by looking at him. Miria tells him not to be like that, and if he's going to act that way he should go back to his room. He He sits on the couch, saying he can't do that, and she says he's so stubborn before asking both Joonsoo and Seonsu to take a seat. They thank her, and Miria says that since they've come all the way here, it means they intend to accept their request. Joonsoo says that first he'd like to see the condition of their son, as there might be a special reason preventing his awakening. Youngju bangs his fist on the table, asking if he really thinks he'd share that with a novice like him, and he's absolutely furious. Miria tells him to calm down and apologizes, saying he gets worked up easily about anything concerning their son. She says this isn't something they can tell a stranger, but if he accepts the request, they'll call the son in and explain the situation. They're sure he's also desperately in need of the nectar, as they can tell the divine fever is affecting him. Joonsoo says that if it's a confidential matter, but they know exactly what he needs, it only makes him more certain that he will accept the request. He says he'll accept it and asks them to call the son in. While they do, he opens the door. He introduces himself as a Woojin. Joonsoo says it's a pleasure to meet him and shakes his hand, noting that he doesn't feel any mana coming from him. Then he notices something and tells the guy that his cloak is really cool. The guy responds that it's more than he deserves, but he always wears it with gratitude. Joonsoo says he imagines he needs it to seal his mana. The entire family is surprised, and Joonsoo smiles, saying that the moment he saw the gloves he was sure of it. Although it's a matter involving a noble family, he deliberately set the conditions for a level 1 superhuman and used the nectar debuff to summon him. He was baptized under the order of the Old Father. The reason their son couldn't awaken is because he rejected the baptism and sealed his mana to avoid the divine fever. While they couldn't announce this publicly and were struggling with the situation, they must have heard the recent rumors about him overcoming the baptism. So they decided to seek him out. Woojin is extremely impressed and starts acting exaggeratedly, saying that no further explanation is needed. He almost thought Joonsoo was the protagonist of a detective novel. Joonsoo says that he's watched enough Detective Conan in the past and that there's nothing to fear, since he also knows the future. The moment he saw the photo, he understood everything because in the future, Woojin becomes the vanguard paladin of the Old Father's order. He rejected the baptism and resisted, but when his parents lost their power, he gave in and joined the order to help the family. Youngju then approaches, calling him sir and asking if there's any way for their son to avoid the baptism. We see everyone looking at him with puppy dog eyes. Joonsoo remarks that he was so arrogant just a moment ago, but now he's acting all polite, saying that of course there's a solution. He says that since he spent 10,000 hours in Arcane Seoul, it's obvious that he knows how to handle this. He places a hand on Woojin's shoulder, saying that he understands the pain he's feeling because he's been through it too, and that he'll get him out of this situation. Woojin begins to cry and hugs him, while Joonsoo says it doesn't matter whether she's a saint or not. She tried to pull him into some low-level cult, and now his future subordinate is by his side, showing yet another expression of loyalty. He then starts pushing Woojin away, saying that before they proceed, he'd like to add a condition. Youngju asks what he wants. Joonsoo says that since the difficulty of the request has increased, it means he should be entitled to something more. Miria agrees, saying it makes sense because now it's not just about awakening their son, but about overcoming the divine fever. They'll do whatever it takes if he can cure their son. Joonsoo says that as an additional condition, he'd like them to teach him the sword capable of breaking mountains. Both are surprised by this request. While Joonsoo smiles, Woojin looks scared. Seonsu strikes the "oh, I'm in danger" pose. It's not Youngju but Miria who steps forward, releasing a strong aura of murderous intent, saying that he surely understands what he just asked for. He looks up, startled, wondering what's up with her murderous aura. It's far more terrifying than her husband's. He realizes she would be furious because the sword capable of breaking mountains. He explains that people might doubt his decision to learn swordsmanship in the 21st century, but in Arcane Seoul, it's a different story, where strength equals authority. As we see a woman slicing through a tank with a sword, he explains that a superhuman swordsman can easily destroy modern weapons, and high-level martial arts are traded for fighter jet squads. If a level 1 superhuman learns and continuously trains in the sword capable of breaking mountains, they can easily reach level 4, which is essentially a cheat code for the early game. He recalls that it was said that only elites could learn this technique, and he wonders if he has crossed the line. He tells her that he would only ask for this as an exchange if he truly completes the request. Woojin then calls her, which snaps her back to reality, and she stops releasing the murderous intent. She says it's fine, and if he succeeds she will give him a memory chip containing the sword, along with the nectar. Joonsoo is surprised that it actually worked, and he thanks her while once again showing his sinister smile. He thought she was going to kill him, but now he might be able to get the sword, which is great. She tells him that if he fails, both she and her husband will be genuinely disappointed, even angry. He responds that that won't happen, and that they should start as soon as possible. As we see them heading towards a warehouse, Miria says that a room with a mana focus circle and 200 intermediate-grade mana potions have all been prepared, just as he requested. He says that should be more than enough, and that he would prefer to be alone with the patient during the treatment. She apologizes for what happened earlier, explaining that Woojin was forcibly baptized before he even had a chance to start school. He never got the chance to make friends, let alone go out as a family. He had to suffer being forced to stay in his room. It seems that she was being overly sensitive due to the situation, so she will trust him completely now. Joonsoo comments that everyone had to suffer because of the saint's trap, and Woojin tells his mother that it's okay. Joonsoo notes that in the game, Woojin ends up opposing his family, even though they were the reason he joined the order. It makes sense that he became so cold in the future, but he feels sorry for them. He says that he will succeed at any cost, and now that it's just the two of them, they can begin. We see Woojin trembling, and Joonsoo tells him to take it easy, asking what he's afraid of. Woojin replies that he thought Joonsoo was going to torture him, forcing him to awaken using electric shocks or something like that. Joonsoo asks what the hell they've done to him so far, and explains that the general treatment for curing divine fever is to drink nectar after awakening. However, since he had too much mana in his body, the divine fever was so severe that he couldn't awaken, and he failed. Joonsoo then tells him not to worry but to remember one thing. Everything he sees today is a secret. Joonsoo says he's about to begin. First, he needs to expand the mana barrier to its absolute limit. Then the barrier will weaken. As we see the divine fever starting to consume Woojin once more, he removes the caps from the healing potions, pouring them into his throat, saying that now is the time. Woojin is confused as the cycle repeats relentlessly, and he continues drinking the potions. He comments that it tastes awful. After several bottles fall to the floor, he finally acquires the drug addiction trait. The damage taken and mana consumption increase, but the effects of the drugs are amplified. He says that now, if he focuses on the mana shield with the drugs, he can level it up, transforming it into an area shield. After configuring the shield around him, he wipes his mouth, saying that the divine fever has been completely expelled from the barrier. Woojin says that was amazing, and Joonsoo responds that it's still too early to be impressed, asking him to take off the glove. Woojin is confused, asking if he heard correctly, and Joonsoo explains that he needs to push his hand through the barrier, and then he just needs to grab his hand. Woojin says that the two divine fevers will create a resonant reaction. Joonsoo begins to step out of the barrier while the divine fever starts to burn him again. He says that the pain will be bearable as he stays inside the barrier, and asks him not to question why, just follow the orders. Woojin's heart starts to race because it's the first time he's taking off the glove since he was baptized. He places his hand through the barrier and it starts to burn intensely. It's even more painful than Joonsoo's divine fever, even though it's only his hand. Joonsoo wonders how much mana this guy has in his body, to the point of being terrifying, but he grabs his hand because there's no other choice. Then he experiences one of the most unbearable pains he's ever faced, as if his entire body is burning. He screams in agony, saying it hurts much more than when he was originally baptized. Joonsoo's eyes start to roll back and he says it feels like his bones are being shattered into pieces. He bites his lip, saying that he needs to stay focused and endure it. Then he hears the notification of a new trait appearing, and he immediately jumps back into the barrier toward Woojin, and the two of them fall to the ground. Joonsoo starts to pant, and we see that he's still holding Woojin's arm, while Woojin acquires the damage absorption trait, meaning he can absorb damage from others. Joonsoo says that this was a success, and Woojin is staring at his hand, now gloveless, saying that he can't believe it's still bearable. Joonsoo says that everything was planned to go this way. Besides the barrier, he used damage absorption to take some of his divine fever for himself, which means his fever is severely weakened, and now it's the final stage. He hands a wooden sword to Woojin, saying that he can't stop and that he needs to attack him until he awakens. Woojin says he understands, and that it's time to use the swordsmanship he's been training since childhood. He then takes his stance and attacks Joonsoo, who we see getting hit in the forearms. While using the armor to block the attack, Woojin runs behind him, and Joonsoo just looks at his guards, armed with fear, since they're made of iron and were broken by a wooden sword. This means the situation is going to get bad. He acquires the protection trait and says that even with this trait, he'll be in a critical state if he's hit even once by these attacks. And to think that this is coming from a guy who hasn't even awakened yet is pretty terrifying. When Woojin begins to attack again, Joonsoo extends his hand, dodging the strike. He places his hand on Woojin's shoulder, spinning in the air, wondering what on earth they've taught this boy. He's struggling even to dodge the attacks. When he lands, he turns around and notices a small aura starting to leak from Woojin, and he's also acquired the evasion trait. Joonsoo smiles, saying that this means Woojin is about to awaken. As Woojin releases more aura than before, Joonsoo remarks that this is bad because the sword also starts to glow, and Woojin is now ranked SSR. It seems like he's unlocked a powerful trait, one with the sword, a state where the sword becomes the person themselves. That's an insanely powerful trait for a warrior class. But it's not the time to get excited, as the guy is completely in a trance, firing a wave of aura directly at Joonsoo. He watches it approach and says that if he gets hit, he'll definitely be dead. Joonsoo says he needs to use all possible defensive traits and focus the barrier on his arms. With the help of the mana focus circle in the room, he might actually have a chance, and he begins using them together. The attack closes in and explodes, and the impact alone destroys the ground beneath him, sending out a powerful shockwave. We see a shield forming from the smoke as he acquires the mana shield trait. He says he's glad he managed to pull it off, and that when you combine mana barrier with protection, this is the result. He comments that he really almost died there. Woojin starts to stagger, which surprises Joonsoo as he watches the guy fall unconscious. Joonsoo asks how he can just lie there so peacefully after trying to kill him. He's relieved that Woojin is just sleeping, since he was a bit worried he might be having a seizure. He probably just lost control due to the awakening. In the game, Woojin was a strong character with an SSR rank just like he is now. But because he awakened as a warrior instead of a paladin, he acquired the sword trait as his initial one. Joonsoo then picks him up, saying he doesn't know how this is going to change the story, but Woojin is a guy with privileges and immense strength. It's good that he now owes him a favor, as he smiles again. This guy might just be a villain. We see Joonsoo lying on his bed, and they're extremely happy that he's truly overcome the divine fever to the point of bowing in gratitude to Joonsoo for everything. Joonsoo says it was nothing, and Seonsu once again becomes a sycophant, holding out a cup for him to drink. Miria gently pats Woojin's head, saying it's been so long since she's seen him sleep so peacefully and that she doesn't know how to repay this debt. Yeonju nods and she does the same. He says that, along with the promised nectar and memory chip, they would like to offer an additional success fee. Joansoo replies that he doesn't have to, and the other man responds that he would like to give 1 billion wons, although this may seem small compared to what Joansoo has done for them. Joansoo nearly dies on the spot and forces a smile, saying that it would be painful for his heart to refuse, but of course he's actually overjoyed to hear this. That night, while he and Seonsu are on their way back, Seonsu says it was truly a lottery win. Joansoo looks at the reward, saying that it looks great. Seonsu asks if he's going to drink the nectar immediately, and Joansoo says yes, since he has to do it anyway. He plans to take a break for a while. Seonsu says he understands, as Joansoo doesn't want to attract attention from the Order or anyone else who might hear about the rewards and try to pursue him. But it's a shame because if he refined the nectar and consumed it, it would significantly increase his mana. Joansoo agrees, saying that if he refined it, his superhuman level would increase a lot instead of spending it on treating the divine fever. They head to a hotel, and when Joansoo steps out, Seonsu says he'll see if he can find the necessary equipment to refine the nectar, so Joansoo should hold on to the drink. Joansoo says he'll think about it, but he's not thinking anything of it and he tears off the label. He decides to drink it as quickly as possible. He learned how cruel Arcane Seoul can be during the incident with the deer, and he can't guarantee Seonsu won't betray him. He also has traits that can maximize the effect now, as he's a drug addict with mana absorption and potion dependency. These are just traits. He begins drinking the nectar and drops the bottle due to the pain he feels, describing it as if every fiber of his muscles were being dismantled and reassembled. He closes his eyes, trying to focus, saying there's an incredible amount of mana inside him. His eyes begin to glow yellow as he shoots a brilliantly bright beam through the window. He's now reached level 2, but the divine fever still seems to be present. He says this is one of the best tier 1 traits in the entire game, and since it was added to his traits along with the mountain sword, he's relieved as he can now focus on training these two traits without any problems. His phone starts ringing, and when he checks, it's Seonsu, who says he has something to tell him. Joansoo ignores it, saying he'll just train, but the phone keeps ringing several times until he answers, asking why the hell Seonsu is bombarding him with messages. He looks at the phone and sees that it's actually a strange message. He starts decoding the letters and reads between the lines, saying it's telling him to run from the Dagger Gang. He says he can't believe he found a secret message in the text and that the Dagger Gang is one of the rival gangs to the Iron Fist. If Seonsu had wanted to betray him, he would have called as usual to buy time. Considering that he sent the secret message, it must mean he was captured first, and it looks like the information was leaked while Seonsu was trying to prepare the equipment. Joonsoo starts to feel a little guilty but decides to ignore it since he got the nectar he needed, and everyone is responsible for their own life in Arcane Seoul. Then the scene shifts to Seonsu screaming as loud as possible, and we see him sitting in a chair surrounded by 3 men. They say he's a stubborn man, and despite an entire night of interrogation, he still hasn't said anything about the superhuman rookie. Seonsu says he signed a contract because he trusted him, and he won't reveal anything no matter what they do to him. The man says he didn't want to resort to this but he had no choice. A man starts walking toward him menacingly, holding an axe, asking if he's going to use his right hand or left. Seonsu doesn't answer, and the man raises the axe, laughing, saying he doesn't care and that he's going to cut off Seonsu's right hand. But just before the axe comes down, an explosion happens behind them and they turn wondering what it was. Then a man starts crawling forward calling for his boss, saying that a madman is attacking them. It seems like he wasn't lying as we see someone aiming and firing rocket launchers at their building. He says they're about to face the consequences of messing with him. He can't just let someone who keeps their promises in this cruel world of Arcane Seoul be left alone. He pulls the trigger saying that, with any luck, this will be a good lesson to show them that the war has just begun. The rocket strikes the side of the building, exploding violently and sending armed men rushing out in a panic. They look around frantically trying to pinpoint the source of the shot, saying they need to find the shooter first. Joonsoo chuckles, commenting that, just as expected, they're spilling out of the building like a bunch of cockroaches. Even though the structure looks like a regular residential complex, he knows for a fact that they were all inside. This is the hideout of the Dagger Gang, a place he's cleared so many times that he's honestly sick of it. It's a complicated dungeon, made up of 6 different buildings. Since this mission is part of the tutorial, he can practically finish it with his eyes closed. He crouches down, then leaps from the rooftop, grinning as he says he's about to speedrun this thing. Nearby, in a narrow alley, a few gang members are patrolling, muttering that this must be the work of Iron Fist, since they're the only lunatics crazy enough to pull something like this. They confidently declare that once they find them, they'll wipe them out. Suddenly, one of them hears a noise coming from a dumpster and decides to check it out. His buddies warn him to be thorough. The man creeps forward, peering down the alley trying to locate the source of the sound. He doesn't see anything. But in the blink of an eye, Joonsoo emerges from the shadows. Before the man can react, Joonsoo grabs his face with a crushing grip and slams him brutally into the nearest wall. Joonsoo laughs, saying the guy didn't even recognize him despite being right in front of his face. And that when it comes to infiltration, there's no better combo than playing dead and using stealth. With the henchmen stumbling around outside like fools, he takes the opportunity to slip into the main building. He lifts the lid of a dumpster and begins descending a hidden staircase, commenting that this is one of the gang's secret entrances. Moving swiftly and silently through the corridors, he takes pride in the fact that he's avoided combat so far. Pressing forward, he notes the gang's unusual obsession with hostages. He remembers that the boss's room is on the 5th floor, which means he still has a long way to go. Because of that, he decides to advance as stealthily as possible, making sure no one notices him. Suddenly, the building's loudspeaker crackles to life, blaring an urgent announcement. Enemy infiltrated the building. All members, arm yourselves and assemble at the rendezvous point immediately. Joonsoo stands before a door, murmuring to himself that he needs to make a decision. If he exits through here, he'll be in the lobby, which is the most efficient route. The central staircase leads directly upstairs. However, there's a problem. Now that the gang has detected an intruder, they've barricaded the lobby to create a defensive line. The moment he opens the door, he'll be shredded by gunfire. Even so, he decides to press forward. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he steps directly into the middle of the enemy formation. Without hesitation, he pulls a Gatling gun from his inventory and unleashes hell. Chaos erupts. The enemies panic, scrambling to retaliate, but the front line is obliterated under the relentless storm of bullets. The rear guards manage to recover and open fire on him. Joonsoo decides he's had enough of this game. He pulls the pin on a grenade and tosses it. The gangsters freeze, watching in horror as the grenade arcs through the air, before detonating right in their faces. Laughing, Joonsoo ducks back behind the door, muttering that stealth was never his thing. Then, lowering his gaze, he reveals a fistful of explosives, grinning as he says he knew one grenade wouldn't be enough. Without hesitation, he hurls 8 more into the room and slams the door shut. Screams of terror echo from the other side. Joonsoo simply smirks. "Hope you guys enjoy the show," he muses. Moments later, silence. Stepping back out, he surveys the scene. Bodies litter the ground. He wonders if he managed to wipe out the entire group in one go, but he knows better than to lower his guard. And sure enough, as if on cue, one of the enemies suddenly staggers to his feet, gun raised, screaming that Joonsoo is going to die. Joonsoo watches calmly. Then, at the very last moment, he sidesteps the shot. A notification pops into his mind. New trait unlocked. Sensory awareness. He chuckles. This was exactly the trait he needed from this dungeon. And now, there's not much left to gain here. Joonsoo stares down the enemy, letting out a cold, sharp laugh before stating flatly that the only one dying here is him. The only sound that follows is the man's scream, cut short by dead silence. When the scene is revealed, a bullet hole is clean through the unfortunate man's skull. With the henchman out of the way, Joonsoo announces that it's time to move up. He may have reached the 4th floor without much trouble, but he knows the real danger begins now. The 4th floor houses the gang's gambling den, and directly above it on the 5th floor is the boss's room. Moving cautiously, he edges toward a corner and peeks around, expecting enemies. But to his surprise, there's no one there. His brow furrows. Keeping his guard up, he advances to the game room's door and carefully pushes it open. Empty. Something's wrong. He can feel the air itself thick with danger. At that moment, a notification flashes. New trait unlocked. Focus. Suddenly, a sound from above catches his attention. He snaps his gaze upward. It's not an enemy. It's a drone. And worse, it's dropping a grenade. His eyes recognize it instantly. A flashbang. The grenade detonates. For a moment, Joonsoo is left blind, deaf, and completely vulnerable. Taking advantage of the opening, a man bursts from one of the side rooms, sprinting toward Joonsoo from behind, knife raised high. The impact lands. The attacker laughs, convinced he's caught a rat in a trap. And just like that, the boss of the Dagger Gang makes his entrance, a level 2 assassin named Tung. But Joonsoo remains unfazed. He smirks and tells Tung he really shouldn't be so excited. Tung, confused, notices something's wrong. His blade didn't pierce. What? Why the hell didn't it go through? He instinctively steps back, creating distance, still struggling to process what just happened. Joonsoo eyes his stance and scoffs. Who's the real rat here? He mocks. You sure it's not just your own insecurities talking? Joonsoo hadn't expected the gang boss to show up on the 4th floor. That complicates things. This wasn't in the original game. But even so, he had anticipated the attack pattern. The flashbang was part of a chained ambush triggered as soon as the player stepped into the boss room. If he hadn't unlocked sensory awareness and focus before this point, he would have walked straight into the trap. Tung may be a skilled assassin, but Joonsoo knows that the key to defeating him is to predict where the attacks will come from. Tung, in disbelief, asks how Joonsoo managed to block his ambush. Joonsoo simply smiles and replies that it's the bare minimum. Without wasting any time, he draws his blade and warns Tung that he's going to regret picking him as a target. He moves swiftly, launching an attack, but Tung dodges at the last moment. In the blink of an eye, the assassin disappears and reappears behind him. You're acting pretty tough for someone so slow, Tung taunts. Tung throws a dagger directly at Joonsoo. He notices the movement, spins his blade, and deflects the projectile in midair. As expected from an assassin. You're damn fast, Joonsoo acknowledges. He quickly realizes that the dagger was enchanted with poison. One simple touch and it would be lethal. The longer the fight drags on, the worse it'll be for him. Tung grins maliciously. You're pretty lucky, huh? How about making a deal? If you surrender now, I'll only cut off one of your arms. Joonsoo rolls his eyes. Less talking, more fighting? Tung laughs and mocks him. I can tell from a mile away that you're a gunman just by how terribly you hold that sword. And you talk too much. Joonsoo wonders why Tung is so confident about that. Maybe it's because until now he's only used firearms. The gang leader charges at him, declaring that he's going to make his death painful. Joonsoo raises his sword above his head. I only have one shot, and it's now. He strikes, but Tung easily evades and laughs. Too slow? But that's exactly what Joonsoo wanted. In the middle of the swing, he twists his body, spins the sword, and redirects the strike straight at Tung's head. The assassin's eyes widen in shock, realizing too late the mistake he made. What? A marksman using a combo attack? Tongue falls to the ground but manages to block the blade at the last moment. Joonsoo smiles, shaking his head. I hate to break it to you, but as soon as I switch traits, I stop being a marksman. He releases a faint aura around his body and declares, now I'm a classic warrior trained in fencing. He adjusts his stance and activates the Mountain Crusher style. His blade descends with overwhelming force. Blood flies. Tongue lets out a scream of pain as the blade tears through his chest. Joonsoo laughs. You dropped your guard. That's why you lost. Tongue, on the verge of death, grips his knife tightly and throws it forward, shouting that he won't fall so easily. Joonsoo, completely caught off guard, didn't expect anything more from someone who was already defeated. The impact happens. Blood sprays through the air. Tongue is sprawled on the ground, motionless, but Joonsoo looks to his side and sees the blade lodged in his own body. Damn it. I dropped my guard. Amateur move. He feels the poison spreading quickly through his veins. Without wasting any time, he reshuffles his traits to counteract the toxin. He manages to hold on, but the pain is intense. Outside he hears voices. Hurry. We need to get in. There's an intruder in the building. Joonsoo looks around. His vision begins to blur. He feels his energy draining from his body. No time to waste. I need to get out of here. On the 5th floor we see Joonsoo tied to a chair. He struggles until he falls to the floor, trying to reach a shard of glass. I need to get out of here fast. He hears footsteps approaching. He looks up and sees none other than himself. The other Joonsoo crosses his arms and asks, how the hell were you captured? Without waiting for an answer, he crouches down and begins to untie him. Once Joonsoo is free, he can't hold back his tears. You came all the way here, to save me? The other Joonsoo merely sighs. We'll talk later. We need to get out of here. They're coming. Now free, Joonsoo tries to stand but can barely walk. Joonsoo watches him and clenches his fists, frustrated. I can't believe they did this to you. He then crouches down. Get on my back. Joonsoo hesitates. I can't ask for anything more. We don't have time for that. Hurry up. Joonsoo hesitates for a moment but eventually gives in. Just this once. He climbs onto Joonsoo's back, apologizing for the inconvenience. Joonsoo, however, is surprised by his loyalty. I thought this world was a hell where I couldn't trust anyone, but I guess I was wrong. Back in Joonsoo's office, Joonsoo devours healing soda bottles one after the other, trying to purify his body. After a while he finally smiles. I did it, poison resistance. That took hours. Joonsoo says, bringing even more bottles. Drink as much as you need. Joonsoo grabs one last bottle and refuses the rest. That's enough. I got the trait I wanted. Joonsoo lowers his head. I can't apologize enough. It looks like information leaked while I was preparing the nectar. I shouldn't have trusted my employees. Joonsoo just smiles faintly. Relax. In the end, I drank the nectar anyway. Joonsoo is shocked and asks why he did that. Joonsoo responds casually. If I hadn't drunk it, I never would have been able to save you. Joonsoo starts to feel incredibly guilty. I can't believe you wasted the precious nectar just to save me. Of course, that wasn't the real reason, but Joonsoo prefers he thinks that way. Suddenly, someone starts banging loudly on the door. Joonsoo panics. Is it the Dagger Gang? What do we do? Joonsoo smiles. Let's welcome them. He opens the door and to Joonsoo's surprise, it's not the Dagger Gang standing there, but the Iron Fist Gang. The leader of the group looks at Joonsoo with a half smile. It was about time I got here. He crosses his arms. I knew you weren't an ordinary guy, but I never imagined you'd wipe out the entire Dagger Gang. What do you want from me? Joonsoo reflects for a moment. Well, it's my turn to receive the reward for cleaning up this tough mission. He begins to explain how the two gangs hated each other and were constantly fighting over territory. In the game, the tutorial required the player to annihilate the Dagger Gang by helping the Iron Fist Gang take the building. As a reward, the rival gang offered various advantages. But now, Joonsoo is struggling with an internal dilemma. Iron Fist asks, do you intend to create your own organization? Joonsoo shakes his head. That's not my style. I called you here to tell you that you can have the entire area that used to belong to the Dagger Gang. The gang leader is surprised. You don't want anything for yourself? I prefer to work alone and have no intention of getting into the crime world. This is the best deal I can offer. Iron Fist ponders. Such a deal has no drawbacks for me. Compared to the debt I had before, this feels like a bonus. Joonsoo laughs. Looks like we're on the same page. Now that Iron Fist has the territory, Joonsoo finally makes his request. So, I want a favor. What do you want? Just thinking about it, Joonsoo starts laughing darkly, but at the same time he smiles genuinely. I want a house. Iron Fist is taken aback by the request. A house? Joonsoo explains. I've been alone for a long time, and I realized I need a real base. He then begins clutching his stomach, pretending to be gravely wounded. Joonsoo panics. Joonsoo, are you okay? Iron Fist clears his throat. You wiped out those bastards? Then it's a deal. Joonsoo smiles. I like direct people. Inside he's buzzing with excitement. What kind of house are you looking for? A villa? An apartment? Joonsoo shakes his head. None of those. I need a secluded house with security, soundproofing, and an underground training center. Iron Fist thinks for a moment, then starts listing some options. Joonsoo bites his lip, hoping he'll mention exactly what he's waiting for. Then, finally, Iron Fist mentions a place. There's a house on the outskirts of the area, on the Jenyabang slope. Bingo. Joonsoo feigns indifference, but inside he's ecstatic. That's the first house the player gets in the game. The main base in Arcane Seoul? He heads to the location and upon arriving, can barely contain his excitement. Finally, he takes in the view and laughs to himself. This house is way better than I imagined. Memories flood his mind. When he first fell into Arcane Seoul, he had no idea what to do. His hospital bill was a ridiculous 20 million won, and now he has a house that feels like a palace. Plus, now he has money coming in from the city's biggest security company. He could pay for a full year of hospital bills without a second thought. But this is still Arcane Seoul. No time to relax. The game's story is going to move forward, and he'll have to face enemies like the Saint, who threaten to destroy the city. He grabs his pickaxe. Time to find out the real reason I chose this house. He heads down to the underground training room and starts tapping on the walls. It must be around here. After a few minutes, he finds a specific spot and begins hammering with force. The wall finally breaks. Joonsoo smiles. My instincts never fail. I think I'll finish this faster than I thought. He continues swinging his pickaxe back and forth, deep in the mine. However, things aren't going as quickly as he expected. Man, I had no idea this was so deep when I played. Even so, he's determined to continue. There's no turning back now. He keeps breaking the rocks until, suddenly he hits a water source. Water begins pouring out and without hesitation he takes a drink. Immediately he feels a wave of revitalization course through his body. This is perfect. Along with the refreshing feeling, his body also starts to warm up. So this is it. A mana spring. As the name suggests, this spring is filled with pure mana. Even characters whose HP has reached 0 can fully recover by immersing themselves in it. Additionally, most debuffs disappear, showcasing its incredible therapeutic power. And guess where one of these free springs is located? That's right, in the house Iron Fist gang gave him. This was one of the main reasons why this house was essential for his progress. Without wasting any time, he prepares a bath. In the game I handled this with a click. Here it's much more labor-intensive. But it was worth it. He feels the energy flowing through his body, confirming just how powerful this spring really is. He grabs his blade and holds it firmly. This place is perfect for training. Here he can fully heal whenever he runs out of energy. So there's no excuse not to give his absolute best. 2 weeks pass. Throughout this entire time he's been locked in the training room. Now he can activate the black flame whenever he wants while wielding the Mountain Breaker sword. He lifts his blade and strikes downward. Mountain Crusher. In a fluid motion he moves into the second stage. Mountain Divider. Finally he finishes with the third stage. Mountain Piercer. With a precise strike he drives his sword forward. Not only has he mastered this technique, but he's also become accustomed to combining it with the black flame. Additionally, he gained new abilities during his training. Crushing Strike. Single Point. Meditation. Mana Stabilization. Fire Resistance. He leans back, catching his breath. Now that I've completed my training goal, there's just one thing left. The Mana Cultivation Technique. Unlike other skills, this one can't be acquired simply by training. Had he refined the nectar properly, he would have already reached level 3. But since he's only at level 2, there's still residual mana in his body. To fully absorb the mana from the nectar and level up, he needs this technique. The problem? It costs tens of billions of won. But he already knows where he can find a copy without spending that fortune. He heads to an antique shop. The shopkeeper eyes him, confused. Are you sure you want to buy this? It's been sitting in the back for over a decade. At that moment, a memory floods his mind. He recalls when he played Arcane Seoul and discovered this secret. He's probably the only person in the world who knows that this technique is hidden in this shop. He makes his way to the market where the shop is located, walking casually. Time to level up. Upon arriving, he notices something strange. The shop's door is locked and surrounded by a blue mana barrier. He touches the barrier, feeling the energy pulse. Not only is the door closed, but there's a mana seal blocking the entrance. Looking around, he takes in the vastness of the area. This is the market with the most shops in the city. You can buy anything here, but what he needs is locked behind that barrier, and he's going to find a way in. In the game, this shop would be open at any time during business hours. But now in real life it's closed. And not just that. All the other shops around it are closed, leaving only this one standing. This is the complete opposite of how it was in the game. He narrows his eyes, feeling a chill run down his spine. This means that the world of Arcane Seoul isn't exactly as I knew it. He finally spots a store with its lights still on in the market and heads over, asking the man inside if things are going badly. He remarks that even the owner of one of the few shops still open doesn't seem to be doing well. The man responds that it's obvious just by looking at him. He's not in a good situation and has to fight off thugs every single day. How could customers possibly come under these conditions? Joonsoo comments that he thought the Iron Fist gang was the only one around. The man tells him he's dead wrong. Ever since the Dagger gang was wiped out, several other groups have been battling each other daily. There's the Iron Fist gang, the Venom gang, and the Naked gang. Who in their right mind would want to step into this mess? Now Joonsoo understands why all the markets are closed. According to the original story, the Iron Fist gang destroyed the Dagger gang and rightfully claimed the territory, naturally bringing the market under their control. But this time he was the one who took down the Dagger gang. Because of that, the market has turned into a battlefield with other gangs fighting to claim it. Joonsoo is considering his next move when he suddenly hears people shouting, telling someone to take them down. The old man says they're at it again, and Joonsoo decides to check out what the thugs are up to. Rounding a corner, he sees a man being thrown into a small tent. A woman confronts him, reminding him that she already told him this was Venom gang territory. She's talking to a member of the Iron Fist gang, flipping him off as she orders him to go back to his own turf. And that's when we're introduced to Steel Scorpion, the sub-boss of the Venom gang. The Iron Fist gang member is bleeding from the mouth. Then, the most elegant voice ever is heard, asking what all the commotion is about. Everyone turns to see none other than our Lord and Savior, Captain Underpants, arriving on the scene with his allies. Scorpion immediately starts yelling that the perverts have arrived. The leader of the Naked gang, known as the Exhibitionist, though I'd rather just call him Captain Underpants, declares that this three-way intersection belongs to him and orders everyone to clear out. If you really want to keep fighting, he warns. The Iron Fist gang members start backing off, calling them lunatics and saying they should take this chance to get the hell out. But one of them accidentally bumps into Joonsoo, who sighs, saying this whole thing is a complete mess. The Iron Fist guy recognizes him and Joonsoo helps him up, telling him to focus on his job. Then he shouts, ordering both Captain Underpants and Scorpion to stop fooling around and come to him. The guy he just saved asks what the hell he's doing, and Joonsoo calmly replies that he's here to help. If he wants the market to return to normal, he needs to establish a clear hierarchy. Scorpion barks at him, demanding to know how he dares to tell her what to do. Captain Underpants chimes in, asking if he's trying to make an offering. Joonsoo explains that if he fought at full power he would probably win. But that would only cause unnecessary damage to the merchants. So he's come to a decision. There's only one way to settle this. He's going to unleash everything from the very start and show them his true strength. Both of them recognize the black flames in his swordplay, realizing that he's the same warrior who single-handedly annihilated the Dagger gang. Joonsoo confirms this and adds that this time he's feeling generous. He's offering them a deal they can't refuse. He doesn't want to drag this out, he'd rather settle it with a one-on-one duel. So what do you say, he asks. Scorpion scoffs, laughing with disdain. Do you seriously think we're dumb enough to agree to a direct fight against a warrior? Joonsoo smirks. Don't worry. We'll compete in the area you have the most confidence in. Sometime later, after a bit of negotiation, we hear Joonsoo talking with Captain Underpants. The so-called leader smirks and declares that his specialty is mind control. If Joonsoo can resist it, he wins. Captain Underpants then gets excited, saying it's an honor for such a handsome man to know so much about him. Scorpion looks like she can't believe what she's hearing, while Captain Underpants continues, insisting that they don't even have to go through with this competition. Joonsoo can just join his religion instead. Joonsoo replies, "Nah bro, I'm good, and tells him to think for a second. His religion isn't even one of the 7 major ones or even one of the lesser ones, it's literally an unnamed backyard cult. Why would he join a random sect that isn't even listed anywhere? Captain Underpants sighs and says that, as expected from a non-believer, Joonsoo will have to be enlightened by the love and mercy of his goddess. He then stretches out his hand and a green aura begins to form around him. He commands Joonsoo to kneel before him so that he may grant him the privilege of meeting his goddess. As the aura starts wrapping around him, Joonsoo immediately recognizes that the mind control ability of a combat priest is no joke. He struggles against the influence, admitting that he feels the urge to kneel, but his traits are far too strong to let that happen. Then, without warning, he delivers a brutal uppercut, sending Captain Underpants flying. As the cult leader crashes to the ground, Joonsoo casually apologizes but warns him that not even a saint could manipulate him. His divine resistance is too high. Captain Underpants' followers rush to carry him away, muttering that it was one hell of a fight. Joonsoo then turns to Scorpion and says it's her turn now. She folds her arms and smirks. Not bad, I'll give you that. But the Venom gang is on a whole different level compared to the perverts you just dealt with. Joonsoo grins. Yeah, I don't think so. But I guess we'll find out soon enough. He tilts his head toward her. Your specialty is obviously poisons, right? Then go ahead, prepare the strongest one you've got. He gestures at himself. I'll drink it. She laughs. If you're that eager to die, I'll be more than happy to help. The Iron Fist guy starts begging, saying he knows Joonsoo is strong, but drinking poison is literally suicide. Joonsoo waves him off. Relax. I got this. Scorpion extends her hand, holding out a small vial. Drink it. If you survive, you win. If not, well, obviously you die and that means I win. He takes the vial and examines it. As expected. You gave me picnic knockout, the most painful poison among all the gangs. He sniffs it and grimaces. Ugh. Smells like ass. Just so you know, if I survive, I'm punching you in the face. She cackles. Then don't come crying for the antidote later. That never even crossed my mind, he replies before downing the entire vial in one go. The pain hits instantly like a thunderclap. His knees buckle, his face turns purple. It feels like his blood is boiling. Scorpion places a foot on his back, grinning in triumph. You're feeling it now, huh? If you beg for your life like a good little dog, maybe, just maybe, I'll consider helping you. Woof woof. But Joonsoo isn't here to play games. He grits his teeth and forces himself to focus. The poison was created using a mix of special medicines. Ordinary resistance won't be enough. He needs to take control of the venom inside him. Slowly he directs it toward his arm. Scorpion's eyes widen as she realizes what he's doing. Then a silent notification flashes through his mind. New trait acquired, drug resistance. With this, he can now manipulate poison using his own mana. Joonsoo draws his sword. Time for the final step. Without hesitation, he slashes his own palm. Blood drips from the wound, then, it transforms into a stream of pure venom. The entire crowd falls silent. No way. He actually expelled the poison? Someone mutters in disbelief. Scorpion shakes her head, calling it insanity. But before she can react, a chill runs down her spine. She realizes too late, he's already on top of her. Joonsoo grabs her finger and, with a sharp twist, rips it off. Her scream echoes through the market as the severed finger hits the ground. She collapses, trembling. Do you really think you can just walk away after doing this to me? Joonsoo rolls his eyes. Quit your third-rate villain monologue and get lost. Staggering to her feet, she backs away, vowing she won't forget this. Meanwhile, the Iron Fist guys erupt in cheers, yelling that she and her gang got exactly what they deserved. Joonsoo lets out a tired sigh. The outcome was never in doubt. The real problem starts now, getting the shops to reopen. The merchants exchange uneasy glances. Just because the Iron Fist gang won, does that mean the extortion will continue? Joonsoo folds his arms and looks at them. I hope you all understand, I did all of this to reach this outcome. The Iron Fist guy beside him nods furiously. There's just one thing the Iron Fist gang needs to keep in mind from now on, Joonsoo says. Of course. What is it? Joonsoo grins. The protection fee for this market will be half of what the Dagger gang used to charge. The Iron Fist guy's eyes go wide. Wait, that means we won't make any profit at all. Joonsoo stares at him, expressionless. Are you really arguing with me? And no way. The boss will totally understand. The merchants overhear the conversation and can't believe what they're hearing. Half the fee? To them, this is practically a miracle. In an instant, Joonsoo becomes a hero. They start bowing, thanking him in every way possible. He chuckles. I just did what needed to be done. But I do expect some good discounts now. After all, this market has everything and I plan to take full advantage of that. The merchants immediately offer him an 80% discount. Joonsoo smirks. Good thing I leveled up my NPC affinity. With the antique shop finally open, Joonsoo heads inside. The shopkeeper greets him with a smile. I've heard a lot about you from the other merchants. The hero who saved the market. Joonsoo shakes his head. Nah, I just did what was right. The shopkeeper laughs. Don't be so modest. Those gangsters have been tormenting this place for years. He lifts his bandaged arm and explains that he had to close the shop after getting beaten up. His arm was broken in the attack. Joonsoo frowns. Were you able to get proper treatment? The shopkeeper nods. Yeah, I had a qigong treatment. Worked like a charm. If it weren't for the therapist, I'd still be in the hospital. There's a qigong therapist in this city? Joonsoo asks, surprised. The shopkeeper smiles. Yeah, and he's damn good at what he does. I can introduce you. Joonsoo thanks him but says he came here to buy something first. The shopkeeper gestures toward the shelves. We have everything, except what we don't. Joonsoo laughs. Now that's how you run a shop. He scans the store, admiring the quality of the goods. Then, tapping his foot against the floor, he says, I want to see what you've got downstairs. The shopkeeper's eyes widen. How do you? Joonsoo flashes a smug grin. I have my ways. Of course he does. He's a no-lifer. They head downstairs and the shopkeeper explains that he normally never shows this collection to new customers. But for Joonsoo, he'll make an exception. Appreciate it? Below, the secret collection gleams before him. A true treasure trove of magical artifacts. Joonsoo's gaze sweeps across the items, confirming that Chunbok has always had rare pieces, both in the game and now. But the real prize is right there. The hornpipe of the ancestral god, which contains a secret mana cultivation technique. This is the jackpot. Now that he's secured the most important item, he might as well grab a few extras. He gathers everything and sets it on the table upstairs. I'll take these. Chunbok eyes the selection sharply. As expected, you've got good taste. He starts listing each item, but Joonsoo only listens until he hears the price. For everything. 2 billion won. Joonsoo stares at him like he misheard. Chunbok bursts into laughter. Relax, relax. That's the price for a stranger. But you? You're the market's guardian angel, so I'll cut you a deal. 500 million. Joonsoo lets out a relieved sigh. Damn, you almost gave me a heart attack. That 80% discount is a lifesaver. Now, all he needs is a superhuman priest capable of removing the sacred seal on the hornpipe. Luckily, he already has a lead on where to find this person. Purely by chance, of course. He asks Chunbok for the Qigong therapist's address and heads deeper into the city. There, he spots someone knocking on the door of room 101. Hey, anyone in there? No response. Joonsoo presses his ear against the door, wondering if the guy stepped out for a bit. Suddenly, the door swings open. A pale man with white hair glares at him, looking more than a little annoyed. What do you want this early in the morning? Joonsoo raises an eyebrow. Dude, it's the afternoon. The man shrugs. Morning for me. Now hurry up and spit it out. Joonsoo studies his appearance and confirms it. This is the guy. I heard your treatments are top tier. The man's expression shifts immediately. His suspicion fades, replaced by interest. Oh, I see. Thought you were one of those gangsters. Come on in. He gestures toward the bed. Lie down. Where's the injury? Joonsoo glances around the room, noticing a statue in the corner. That just confirms his suspicions even more. The therapist frowns. What are you doing? Just get on the bed. But Joonsoo smirks and reaches into his bag. Actually, I'm not here for treatment. He pulls out the hornpipe of the ancestral god and holds it out in front of the man. I came here for you to remove the seal on this item. The man furrows his brows. What do you mean, remove the seal? I'm a therapist, not a priest. If that's what you want, go to a temple. Joonsoo shakes his head. Not a chance. A temple would charge a fortune. Not to mention they might just confiscate the item. He then smirks and continues, but if you do it for me, I'll pay you 100 million won. Priest Kim. The man freezes. How do you know that name? Joonsoo shrugs. Of course I know. You're the third tutorial character in Arcane Seoul. He explains that Kim is a priest of a forgotten religion that worshipped a god who died 3,000 years ago. Among the countless corrupt priests in Arcane Seoul, Kim is one of the rare few who are truly innocent. With so many frauds out there, finding a good-hearted guy like you is practically a miracle, Joonsoo says with a grin. And that means you're going to be very useful to me? He leans in slightly. But let's keep this between us, yeah? The priest sighs, scratches his head and replies, this won't be easy, but I'll try. Joonsoo smiles. I knew you were a good guy. The two sit down on the floor. Kim places the hornpipe of the ancestral god between them, closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. Slowly, a divine aura begins to surround the artifact. The seal weakens bit by bit and he murmurs, it's working. The sacred ribbon wrapped around the artifact starts unraveling, then snaps entirely, revealing its true nature. Just as expected, the hornpipe holds within it the Einherjar cultivation technique. Kim stares at the item in awe. I actually did it? Joonsoo nods. As expected, you've got incredible talent. Kim keeps his gaze fixed on the hornpipe. This is a mana cultivation technique? Joonsoo confirms and thanks him. Then, without hesitation, he brings the hornpipe to his lips and blows. A powerful energy field spreads through the room, hitting him like a tidal wave. His mana circuits start purifying. The bad mana inside me, it's being completely absorbed. A deep sense of tranquility washes over him, as if he's reached a new level of serenity. If he keeps this up, in 2 weeks he'll reach level 3. Kim claps his hands impressed. This is the first time I've ever seen a warrior using a mana cultivation technique. It's a rare sight for sure, Joonsoo replies. Kim grins. You must be exhausted. Lie down for a bit. Joonsoo shivers slightly. I just got hit with too much information at once. I'm fried. He lets out a deep sigh and collapses onto the floor. I'll rest for a while. I'm in your care. Kim chuckles. For what you paid me, you can stay as long as you want. As Joonsoo drifts into deep sleep, a thought lingers in his mind. This guy is really reliable, just like in the game. Having a trustworthy priest around is going to be a huge advantage later on. Sometime later, a sound wakes Joonsoo. Something is being poured. He opens his eyes, confused. What the hell? The strong smell of gasoline floods his nostrils. He turns and sees Kim pouring gasoline over the bag full of money. Joonsoo's eyes widen. What the hell are you doing? Kim sets the gas can down and pulls out a lighter. Oh, forgotten god, accept my offering and rise once more. He drops the lighter. The fire devours the bills instantly. Joonsoo can only think, what the hell is happening? Without hesitation, he lunges forward and grabs Kim's wrists. Are you insane? He pushes the priest to the floor, pinning him by the shoulders. What the hell is wrong with you? Why are you burning the money I just gave you? Kim, his eyes glowing with devotion, responds, it's an offering to my god. Joonsoo clenches his jaw. And why the hell would a god need money? Kim answers as if it's obvious. Because my god only accepts cash offerings. It's the only way to obtain divine power. Joonsoo sighs. Ah, so this is that phase where you still believed in this nonsense. He crosses his arms and continues, the god you worship has been dead for 3,000 years. Even in the game, your religion was weak and had no influence, until you resurrected him. Which means, you clearly didn't know how to worship him properly. And you know what? Your method is wrong. Kim furrows his brows. Wrong? Yes, Joonsoo states firmly. You're not supposed to burn cash. What you actually need to burn is gold. You have to melt it down and vaporize it. Kim's eyes widen in outrage. Only a heretic would say that. Joonsoo shrugs. Or maybe it's something only someone who actually knows what they're doing would say. I bet you've never even tried it before. Kim scoffs. Don't talk nonsense so confidently. The Order has practiced this method for thousands of years. Oh yeah. Joonsoo smirks. Then why is your god still dead? The argument hits so hard it practically leaves a bruise. Kim is speechless. Joonsoo stands up and dusts himself off. Melting gold is kind of complicated these days. But I have another solution. Kim eyes him suspiciously. What solution? Well, Joonsoo grins. You helped me obtain my cultivation technique, right? So now it's my turn to help you. Cut to a pot filled with a shimmering golden liquid. Kim stares at it, hesitant. I'm pretty sure we shouldn't be doing this here. Joonsoo pushes a bowl toward him. Just drink it. Kim hesitates. If you do, your divine power will increase drastically, Joonsoo insists. But you need to focus and sense whether your god is responding. Kim bites his lip. Diske, since you won't shut up about it? He closes his eyes and downs it all in one go. Joonsoo smiles, satisfied. Suddenly, Kim trembles. His chest burns, his hair stiffens, and divine energy begins to surge through his body. Joonsoo crosses his arms. So, how do you feel? Kim's eyes widen in shock. Holy shit. This is real. This is way better than burning millions in cash. Joonsoo nods. Your growth will skyrocket if you stick to this method from now on. Kim wags his tail excitedly. I have no idea how I can ever repay you for this. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, he pulls a necklace from inside his robes and hands it to Joonsoo. Take this, Kim says. Joonsoo takes the object and examines it. A sacred artifact with the heal ability. Not bad. Kim smiles. I believe my god will be pleased to see you with it. Joonsoo holds the necklace between his fingers. Well, since you're offering, it would be rude to refuse. Then he thinks to himself, this turned out to be even more profitable than I expected. In fact, Kim's order also provided incredible quests in the game. He suddenly grabs Kim's hands, looking him straight in the eyes. Let's pray together. Kim blinks, confused. What? Why? Joonsoo grins. Because I want to repay you. And just like that, in true Pokemon fashion, Joonsoo captured Priest Kim. 1 week later. The room is filled with bottles of shimmering golden liquid. Kim is pleading. Please, no more. If I keep drinking this, I'll turn into gold. Joonsoo crosses his arms. Until you become Midas himself, you have to keep drinking. Kim trembles. I am going to die of mana poisoning. Joonsoo's eyes shine like a shoujo anime protagonist. Do you really think so? He smiles. I guarantee that won't happen. Kim swallows hard. Joonsoo picks up another bottle, grabs Kim's face, and pours the entire contents into his mouth. Now just pray. Kim thrashes in protest, but Joonsoo keeps smiling. Oh, and one more thing, he adds. The 4 tutorial characters each have unique traits. He watches as Kim writhes on the ground. If Warrior Kim had an entirely white body, then Priest Kim, Joonsoo's grin widens, is completely immune to mana poisoning. This allows his growth rate to skyrocket. The bottle empties and Kim feels like absolute garbage. But then his divine power explodes, forming a glowing circle around him so intense that it blinds Joonsoo. Kim has reached level 3. His eyes widen. At this level, I can even start preparing to become an apostle. Joonsoo laughs. Perfect. At this pace, it won't be long before you're ready. I'd say you've accumulated more than enough divine experience. He then crosses his arms, thoughtful. Besides, now that you're level 3, you need to call a regional assembly and gain official recognition as a bishop. Kim nods. Yes. I have 2 bishops already, and thanks to your help, I've grown so fast that I'll never forget this debt. Joonsoo waves his hand. Oh, relax. I just like helping people. But of course, he's betting everything on the fact that this guy will want to repay the favor for the rest of his life. After all, he wants access to the artifacts in Kim's god's vault. Kim then takes a deep breath. Actually, I'd like to make a request. Joonsoo raises an eyebrow. What is it? Kim hesitates. I need to call a regional assembly, but I'm worried about going alone. Could you be my bodyguard until the meeting? The other bishop will be there too. Joonsoo smiles. Of course. That's easy. Now that Kim has completed his growth, it's time to start the mission line. The next day, the church is still under reconstruction. The faithful surround Kim, congratulating him for reaching level 3. Kim thanks them, but Joonsoo just watches disappointed. What's this? The scale is so small. I can't believe this is all that's considered an assembly. Then a man enters the room. He looks around and scoffs. What a sight, pathetic. The other bishop finally appears. He glares at Kim. Tell me, who gave you permission to organize an assembly? Kim breathes deeply. Every priest in the order has the right to call one. The bishop smiles coldly. That only applies to regular priests? He leans forward. When it comes to an apostate, it's a whole different story. Kim furrows his brow. What do you mean by that? I never renounced my faith. The bishop smirks. Your level increased to 3 in just 3 months. There's no way someone could grow that fast by normal methods? So there's only one explanation. His eyes gleam. You sold out your brothers to gain more powerful divine power? Kim's eyes widen. That's absurd. I just found an efficient method. The bishop sighs. Enough with the excuses. He raises his hand and soldiers enter the room. Capture him. But before they can move, Joonsoo steps forward. Hey, we can't let you scare the kid like that. The soldiers turn to him. And who the hell are you? Joonsoo laughs. I'm his bodyguard. The bishop narrows his eyes. This is an affair of the order. We don't need outsiders interfering. Joonsoo smiles. But I just said I'm his bodyguard. So I'm not an outsider. He crosses his arms. By the way, what kind of boomer logic is that? Kim then speaks up. I just drank gold to level up. This can't be considered a crime. The bishop grows furious. Consuming gold is the act of a heretic. How dare you commit such blasphemy and still expect to escape unscathed? Kim opens his mouth to retort, but the bishop raises his hand. A fireball materializes in his palm. I'll purify you personally and offer you to our god. He casts the spell. Kim screams. The explosion lights up the entire room. Everyone holds their breath. Did Kim? But when the dust settles, Joonsoo is standing in front of Kim, unscathed, with a mana shield still glowing around him. He sighs. Attacking someone without warning? He furrows his brow. Now that's blasphemy. The bishop is left speechless. Why you blocked my magic? Joonsoo smiles. So, you really want to attack a potential apostle like this? The bishop grits his teeth. There's no way a heretic can become an apostle. Kim looks at Joonsoo confused. What do you mean? Joonsoo smiles. Don't worry. He pulls something out of his pocket. Just eat this and pray. Kim blinks. What? Why? The bishop raises his hand again. If you don't want to burn along with Kim, get out of the way. Joonsoo smiles even more. If I prove that he is an apostle? He narrows his eyes. What will you do? Suddenly, a golden aura fills the room completely. Kim falls to his knees, his eyes shining. He begins to pray. The bishop's eyes widen. It can't be. The arrival of an apostle? Joonsoo crosses his arms. There's a reason I didn't make Kim an apostle yesterday. He glares at the old man. It's because you have a serious mental delay. He then gives a half smile. And also, you're a detestable villain who envies Kim. So I need to eliminate you here. He grips the hilt of his blade tightly. The requirement for Kim to awaken, he points, is to consume a golden relic from another order. The bishop's eyes widen. Joonsoo smiles. And with you being accused of blasphemy, it won't be hard to ensure Kim becomes the true apostle. Suddenly, a golden halo appears above Kim's head. His eyes shine. The bishop takes a step back, terrified. Joonsoo raises his blade. Now that the apostle has arrived, his eyes turn cold and sharp. It's time to teach this blasphemer a lesson. He then looks at Kim. By the way, I want to ask something to your god. He smiles. How should we punish a bastard who murdered a bishop out of envy and tried to blame his own son as a heretic to kill him? The bishop pales. How do you know this? Then, Kim hears the voice of his god. He lifts his head, and with an unwavering tone he responds. The only answer is to kill him. Joonsoo swings his blade, aiming directly at the bishop's neck. The blade stops a hair's breadth from his skin. He smiles. If this is the divine order, I can't refuse. The bishop trembles, his eyes filled with despair. Please, have mercy. Joonsoo runs the blade across his throat. Blood sprays and the body collapses to the ground. The air in the church grows heavy. Everyone is in shock. Someone has just died in the house of their god. Joonsoo then smiles indifferently. The problem was solved before this worm could cause any more damage. Even Priest Kim seems stunned. Still, he was one of our bishops. Joonsoo shrugs. No reason to feel sorry for him. He deserved this. He then looks at Kim. And now, what is your god commanding you to do? Kim closes his eyes for a moment as if listening to something. Then he breathes deeply. He ordered me to go to the Levant region where our order began and offer gold there. Joonsoo smiles. I told you gold was the best choice. He crosses his arms. Now go there and expand your influence. Kim bows deeply. I don't know how I can repay you for all of this. Joonsoo pats him on the shoulder. You don't have to. I already planned to take advantage of it. Sometime later, Joonsoo arrives home. He stops in front of the statue of Kim. He smiles, satisfied. The reward for helping the priest was worth it. He looks at the valuable items he acquired. Among them, his first holy sword of rank or worth billions. But the most interesting thing is the divine statue, which creates a sanctuary around it. The sanctuary effect turns an area into a safe zone, protected by the will of its owner. If an enemy tries to invade, they suffer an expulsion or suppression effect. In other words, he can train like a madman without worrying about any interruptions. He begins his training. His sword strikes cut through the air. Time to have some fun. He raises his blade, an excited smile on his face. Some time later, Joonsoo is submerged in the bathtub, holding his breath. He wants to test how long he can last without air. He emerges looking like a wrinkled old man, gasping desperately. Okay, maybe I trained too much? Even the mana source isn't healing him properly. But still, he had plenty of time to practice his Enherjar cultivation technique and his mountain-crushing swordsmanship. And now, finally, he can assess the results. He picks up his phone. Seonsoo appears on the screen. Been doing well? Joonsoo laughs. Of course. But I need a warm-up. He stretches, excited. Is there anything I can help with? Seonsoo makes a face. Actually, we have a rather troublesome request. He pauses for a moment. Do you remember the first landfill? Joonsoo frowns. How could I forget? It was the first job I did, where I fought the porcupine. Seonsoo nods. Well, a whole cleaning team went in there, and they were massacred. This means that there are at least 6 active mutants there now. Joonsoo narrows his eyes. And why the hell haven't you called in the Janitors Association? Seonsoo sighs. The authorities asked us to handle it secretly. They don't want this to become a scandal. Joonsoo snorts. If this leaks, some of them are going to lose their jobs big time. He crosses his arms. And what's the reward? Seonsoo scratches his head. The payment is kind of pathetic. 100 million for a level 1 mutant. 300 million for a level 3. Joonsoo rolls his eyes. Is that all? Actually, Seonsoo smiles. They're offering an artifact. An arcane rifle with a cursed debuff. Joonsoo raises an eyebrow. What kind of debuff? Seonsoo hesitates, then smiles. It's an item that's related to you. A rifle used by the old order of the Father. Joonsoo's eyes widen. Then he chuckles softly. This mission, I can't refuse. That arcane rifle used by the order. It has a black flame debuff that consumes its user. But Joonsoo has already overcome that before. He gets up from the bathtub. Alright. I'm heading there right now. Joonsoo is definitely fired up. He heads toward the landfill, and right from the start, he can feel a sinister aura emanating from the place. As he moves forward, holding his rifle, he mutters. They haven't cleaned this place for just a few days, and it's already this chaotic? Something's very wrong here. His senses are scrambled, he can barely see properly. He needs to prepare for a surprise attack. With a quick movement, he activates his sensory focus. Almost like an immediate warning, he feels something moving fast in the mist. He looks around, tense. The sounds of the creature come from multiple directions. He can't pinpoint exactly where the enemy is. A strong wind blows behind him. He spins around immediately. And there it is, something like a gargoyle bat leaping straight at him. Joonsoo pulls the trigger. Die. The monster is riddled with bullets, but instead of falling, it flies away only wounded. Joonsoo frowns. Is that it? He keeps firing, but soon realizes the bullets are ricocheting off the creature's wings. The beast loops through the air and launches back at him. Joonsoo rolls to the side, sliding to avoid the strike. Oh shit. If he hadn't switched to the evasion trait, he would have been torn in half just now. A flying bulletproof enemy? If I keep this up, the longer this fight lasts, the worse it'll get. There's only one solution. He lowers the weapon, aiming directly ahead. The monster charges toward him. I need to end this with a single shot. The enemy gets closer and closer. Bang. The shot hits directly between the eyes. With its last breath, the creature screams, crashing down on him, blood pouring from its head. Joonsoo laughs, still lying on the ground. I won. And on top of that, he unlocked a high-level shooting trait. Then he hears footsteps. The sounds of the fight have attracted more mutants. There are too many. He wouldn't be able to handle them all. But then, he smiles. Or maybe, he would. He activates stealth and hides behind a pillar, near the monster's corpse. I'll wait for them to show up first. In the next moment, a group of ridiculous-looking guys starts advancing. They seem to be made out of modeling clay. Joonsoo smiles, holding a grenade. Ah, it's nice that my little cuties have arrived. He throws a few grenades. Let's see, when you all gather in one spot, goodbye. Boom. The landfill explodes, debris flying in every direction. Joonsoo laughs, raising his rifle. That was just the beginning. He begins unloading bullets at the surviving creatures, turning the slime monsters into chunks. And he laughs even more, thinking that he should use these clever tactics more often. Then, something alerts him. More creatures appear around him. But these are different. They don't make a sound. Joonsoo hasn't noticed them until now. And there's one more thing wrong. They're not mutants. They're specters from a necromancer. And there are a lot of them. Suddenly, a radio in one of the specters begins to play. A voice speaks directly to him. Can we have a little chat? Joonsoo narrows his eyes. Are you talking to me? Then he sees it. The specter wasn't speaking. It was a speaker attached to it. He sighs, understanding everything. Well. So you're using these specters to communicate, huh? This means you're the necromancer who created them. The voice responds. Why are you causing destruction in my territory? Joonsoo scoffs. Your territory? This is a contaminated landfill, my friend. But then, something clicks in his mind. The truth hits him like a weight. The Cleaners Association on the surface seems like a benevolent organization. They clean contaminated mana, bringing safety. But in reality, they're one of the most dangerous groups in Arcane Seoul. I get it. The mana cleaning is just a cover. Behind the scenes, the organization is involved in all kinds of crime, expanding its influence. And this is probably yet another one of their schemes. They created this situation on purpose. The government would have no choice but to ask for their help. And with that, the Cleaners Association's influence would only grow. Joonsoo closes his eyes for a moment. Then, he smiles, full of adrenaline. This just got a lot more interesting. Meanwhile, the Cleaners Association already has another plan in motion. They intend to use these incidents as an excuse to dismiss public employees who oppose them, consolidating their power even further. The necromancer's voice echoes through the speaker. There's really no reason for us to fight, you know? He pauses. I've got a proposal for you. Joonsoo rolls his eyes. Here we go. You're quite talented, the necromancer continues. Why don't you join us in the Cleaners Association? Joonsoo scoffs. And why would I join an organization that spreads terror with monsters and landfills? The voice stays calm. I'm serious. With your skills, you'd be at the top of our hierarchy. Without a second thought, Joonsoo flips him off. No fucking way. Besides, he adds, that name is garbage. Totally lacking style. The necromancer bursts out laughing. Looks like you don't know your place. If you don't want to join us, the voice turns cold and sharp. Then you can just die. The specters charge toward Joonsoo. He shoots, causing a massive explosion that sends the specters flying in all directions. Sit down, buddy, he taunts. But the specters aren't mutants, they're magical summons. As long as there's mana, they simply regenerate. Joonsoo lets out a frustrated sigh. Oh shit. I forgot that firearms are useless against these things. He holsters his weapon and pulls out his sacred sword. Well, if that's the case, sacred attributes will take care of them. The necromancer's voice falters for a moment. A sacred sword? I thought you were just a shooter. Joonsoo charges, slicing through the specters with precise strikes, cutting them in half. Shut up, he growls. I'm going to find you, and when I do, you'll regret it. He advances, slicing through the fast-moving specters, severing limbs and limiting their mobility. Thanks to his attribute advantage, the fight isn't difficult. But the specters keep coming. Okay, enough, he mutters. Time to change tactics. He activates his resistance traits and combines them with the abilities of his artifacts. The sword, gloves, and necklace he bought from the store. Now, with 9 traits active, he believes this will be more than enough. Let's see how far this takes me. He launches forward, releasing an attack in the form of 4 aura blades, sending the specters flying backward. It works, but it's draining my energy pretty fast. He fires another attack, destroying even more of them. But some simply ignore the damage. The world around him begins to spin. Shit. I'm getting dizzy. But, just one more attack. His body starts to glow blue. He takes a step forward, and in the blink of an eye, he surges straight ahead like lightning. The ability he just unlocked is called Charge. A trait that allows him to move at high speed, dealing damage to everything in his path. He grins excited. I didn't expect to get this, but I'm glad I did. As he cuts through the specters like a rocket, he's already thinking ahead. If I can unlock another skill now, that'd be perfect. He bends his knees and leaps into the air, unlocking another trait called Jump. Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like, he laughs. With Charge and Jump combined, escaping or attacking becomes a breeze. As he descends at high speed, he mocks. Now these idiots won't even know what hit them. He leaps and charges repeatedly, bouncing across the battlefield like a human projectile. After a while, he collapses, exhausted. Most of the specters have been destroyed. But his body is on the verge of breaking down. The necromancer's laughter echoes from the speaker. I didn't expect you to be a paladin. Now, I want you even more. Joonsoo struggles to get back on his feet. If you're so confident, why don't you show yourself? The necromancer responds with contempt. What kind of idiot mage would face a warrior in direct combat? Instead, accept my gift. Before him, a corpse begins to move. It's a shield bearer, a level 2 undead. Joonsoo clicks his tongue. This is going to be a problem? He still hasn't fully healed. The shield bearer raises its weapon and brings it down violently toward him. Joonsoo narrowly dodges. But before he can react, a purple arrow soaked in dark mana cuts through the air, and it strikes him in the back. He spins quickly, trying to understand what's happening. The necromancer's voice comes through again. Your moves are pretty decent. I can't wait to turn you into a death knight. Joonsoo narrows his eyes. This reminds me of a rule in Arcane Seoul. When you fight a necromancer, you should never focus on their servant. He leaps into the air, pretending to prepare an attack, but it's a feint. Instead, he dives straight to the ground, sliding beneath the undead's shield. His eyes scan the area, searching for the origin of the shot, until he finally spots it. Up high in the balconies, a silhouette stands out. So, it's you? Joonsoo activates charge, dodging the shield bearer's attack and rushing directly toward the necromancer. He propels himself off the ground, soaring through the air. Time to finish off this coward. He draws his sacred sword, pointing it at the enemy. You made a fatal mistake by revealing yourself. Karen, the necromancer, smiles with disdain. So, you have a brain after all? Joonsoo narrows his eyes. Now that I see your face, I recognize you. You're Karen, a Reincarned necromancer. One of the directors of the Association of Cleaners, and the final boss of this damn landfill. Superhuman level 3. Karen raises his hand indifferently. Things aren't going to go the way you expect. Suddenly, spectral purple hands shoot out from his back, grabbing Joonsoo from all sides. He struggles trying to break free. Karen simply laughs. You'll never catch me. Then he fires magical arrows and releases a devastating electrical discharge. Joonsoo screams in pain while Karen watches, satisfied. That scream? It's beautiful. He laughs loudly. You should have known your place. Joonsoo, still trapped, smiles. Actually, this is my ultimate technique. He raises his hand, conjuring a massive black fireball. Black flame. Karen's eyes widen. What? Joonsoo forces his arm to break free. This is the end of the game. Karen tilts his head. Why are you trying so hard? It's actually adorable. Joonsoo grins slyly. You really think so? From the very beginning, I never intended to finish the fight quickly. Karen furrows his brow. Joonsoo continues. When a boss uses their ultimate attack, if you equip the right traits, something fun happens. Karen rolls his eyes. Enough with the small talk. He shoots the black flame directly at Joonsoo. The black sphere, roaring with malevolent flames, advances rapidly. The spectral hands still hold him in place. Joonsoo smiles. It's now. When the three pillars, sword, magic, and physical power, align in perfect harmony, a supreme technique manifests in the face of certain death. It's the ultimate technique. The blade that cuts through everything, both the tangible and the intangible. Joonsoo raises his sword and brings it down. A massive golden burst erupts from the blade, slicing the black flame in half. The light illuminates the battlefield. Karen trembles. It can't be. The name of this trait? Cutting lightning. Karen watches in panic as the golden cut heads straight for him. And then, it cuts through his body, splitting him in half. The explosion of the black flame happens shortly afterward. The shockwave hurls Joonsoo back. He crashes to the ground, gasping for breath. Almost died. He lets out a sigh of relief. But a smile forms on his face. He won. Karen, the dungeon boss, was defeated. In the game, if you want to defeat this boss on level 2, you need an entire group. Even at level 3, winning alone with common traits and basic equipment would be impossible. He only managed it because he's been playing this game for way too long. But now, time for the loot. And since he did everything alone, he doesn't have to share anything with anyone. Cut to Seonsoo's office. Seonsoo is waving at Joonsoo, looking at him with admiration. You're amazing. Joonsoo boasts. Oh, it was nothing. Seonsoo lightly touches his shoulder. Joonsoo winces in pain. Hey, be careful. That's where I got hurt. Seonsoo apologizes. Meanwhile, the others around them are just staring, trying to understand. What the hell did they just witness? They thank Joonsoo, still in disbelief. I can't believe you did it all alone. Joonsoo just shrugs. I was just doing my job. He pauses. But there's one problem. He looks around at everyone. When I entered the landfill, something very different from what you asked for happened. Joonsoo slams Karen's equipment onto the table. Do you recognize this? The others look at it, confused. He points to the pieces. They're mana equipment, used to create specters. Equipment that belongs to Karen from the Association of Cleaners. A heavy silence falls over the room. Then Joonsoo confirms. That's right. This incident wasn't an accident. It was planned. The man slams his fist onto the table, his face red with anger. I can't believe those bastards did this. Joonsoo crosses his arms. Looks like they never liked you from the start. The man grinds his teeth. They always charged us ridiculous fees. We've had our own conflicts before, but I never imagined they'd take it this far. Turning innocent people into mutants? Joonsoo observes his reaction. Did he really not know? But thinking about it, it makes sense. In the game, the reality of the association is only revealed after the player completes this mission. The man lowers his head, ashamed. I'm sorry we put you in unnecessary danger because of this. Joonsoo shrugs. I just did what I had to do to blow up the bad guys. He smirks. But, of course. I hope there's a good compensation, not just a simple apology. The man nods, picking up 2 boxes and placing them on the table. This is the reward we promised. Joonsoo furrows his brow. Wait a minute. Why are there 2 boxes instead of 1? The man explains. One contains the arcane pistol we promised. The other is an extra reward for you taking on such a dangerous task. Joonsoo opens the second box, his eyes widening. Wait, is this sacred water? He nearly freaks out but quickly hides his excitement. This is an essential potion and I always have to buy it at the temple. Are they giving it to me for free? The man gives him a final warning. Stay safe. We'll use this evidence to officially accuse the Association of Cleaners. Joonsoo clicks his tongue. So that means they're going to retaliate against me, right? The man confirms with a nod. Exactly. But we can't just let this slide. Joonsoo smiles, confident. Don't worry. I'll find a way to survive. That night, Joonsoo and Siansoo are driving through the city center. Siansoo at the wheel sighs. Maybe it's a good idea for us to stay off the radar for a while. The Association of Cleaners won't let this go. Joonsoo shakes his head. I don't think hiding is the best plan. After completing the landfill mission, the player gets a chain of quests. Eventually we'll end up clashing with them again. It's natural. After all, I just killed one of their directors. He looks out the window, thoughtful. But the most important thing? The association's quest line splits into 2 routes. The worst one is doing nothing and just wasting time. Siansoo raises an eyebrow. And why is that? Joonsoo smiles bitterly. Because in that case, the president of the association attacks your house with dozens of superhumans? Siansoo swallows hard. Joonsoo continues. On the other hand, the easier route is the one I'm considering. He turns to Siansoo. Have you ever heard of Genubong? Siansoo goes serious. Of course. It's that restricted area south of the region. There's a huge poppy plantation there. If you're caught inside, you're screwed. Joonsoo smiles sideways. Exactly. And guess what? That place belongs to the Association of Cleaners. Siansoo's eyes widen. They have dealings with poppies? Joonsoo shakes his head. No. It's not about the poppies. They're conducting body modifications and human trafficking there. They're nothing but a luxury crime syndicate. Siansoo's eyes widen. Are they crazy? Joonsoo nods. Exactly. And that's why I'm going to strike first. Siansoo jerks the steering wheel abruptly, almost crashing the car. What? Say that again? Joonsoo ignores him and instead pulls out his phone, showing a list of supplies. Claymores. EMP bombs. Among other dangerous and expensive things. Siansoo blinks, confused. What the hell do you plan to do with all this? And, do you have any idea how much this is going to cost? Joonsoo smiles wryly. Money is something only amateurs worry about. These items? I got them while cleaning up the monsters at the landfill. Siansoo inspects the materials and nods, impressed. This should cover the costs. But, Joonsoo, even you couldn't take on the association alone. The president is level 4. The executives, level 3. Joonsoo leans back in his seat, looking at him with a confident smile. Who said I'm going to fight alone? For now, just focus on getting the items on the list. 2 days later, Poppy Farm hideout. The night was dark. Guards patrolled the perimeter, but they didn't notice the shadow creeping up from behind. Joonsoo, in stealth mode, holds a cloth and presses it against one of their faces. The guy trembles, his eyes widen until his body goes limp and crumples to the ground. High level, he's done. The other guard turns at the sound. Hey, what? Bang. A direct shot to the chest. The man falls dead immediately. Joonsoo deactivates his stealth and cracks his neck. I never get tired of infiltration. He smiles, satisfied. This should take care of the external security. And, to think I said I didn't like stealth before. Well, sometimes it's worth it. He moves away, grabbing his communicator. But before he could speak, crack. A man flies into the wall, his face deformed by the impact. And then he appears. Iron Fist. Thanks for clearing the way. We've taken control of the underground with no trouble. He spits on the ground, scanning the area. These guys are real monsters. They forced body modifications on both kids and adults, and then trafficked them out of the country. Joonsoo nods. That's exactly why we need to put an end to them. He adjusts his earpiece. Did you finish checking the place? Iron Fist walks through the lab, examining the machines. Yeah, this place is a legitimate modification workshop. Joonsoo smiles. Great. Once we're done, it's yours. I'll help you strengthen your men. Iron Fist crosses his arms, studying Joonsoo. This sounds good. But are you sure you can take on the association? If they get involved, it's going to be a problem for everyone. I don't want to deal with the fallout. Joonsoo laughs, pulling out his lighter. Have you ever seen me act without a reason? He lights the flame, watching it dance between his fingers. This farm is their main source of income. But the security here is much weaker than the rest. That means it's the perfect place to start bringing down the association. Iron Fist narrows his eyes. Wait, what are you? Joonsoo tosses the lighter. The next morning, Association Tower. A man runs down the corridor, panting. He bursts into the presidential office. Mr. President, we have a problem. The man sitting at the desk furrows his brow. What happened? The employee swallows hard. The poppy farm was attacked. The president furrows his brow. By who? The man trembles, his voice caught in his throat. It was the man who killed Karen. He took control of the hideout. The president clenches his fists. Then, boom. His punch destroys the desk, cracking the floor. How dare they? His eyes burn with rage. And then, the screen presents his name. Park Dae-iop, president of the Association of Cleaners. The assistant, trembling, extends the phone to the president. Sir, look at this. On the screen, a ridiculously bold selfie of Joonsoo appears. Behind him, the poppy farm is ablaze. The president grits his teeth, his eyes twisting with fury. Then, with a single grip, he crushes the phone in his hand. I will make sure the warrior Kim is reduced to ashes.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, it really helps. And for more content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see another part. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you next time. Bye-bye.